On a quiet farm where love and dreams grow stronger with every sunset, Quang and Linda share more than hard work. They share a vision of a future filled with laughter and children running barefoot through the fields. From evenings spent gazing at baby photos to the aching memories of a heartbreaking miscarriage, their journey is woven with both sorrow and hope. Yet their love fuels an unshakable desire to start anew, to fill their farmhouse with life once more. Don't miss this emotional story of resilience and devotion. Subscribe now and follow their touching journey of love and hope. The sun was slowly descending behind the line of distant hills, painting the sky in shades of amber and soft lilac. A gentle breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass and the earthy fragrance of the soil that Quang and Linda had worked on all day. The farm, with its rustic wooden fences and the faint sound of cows lowing in the distance, was wrapped in a golden glow, as though nature itself wanted to reward them for their hard labor. After hours of tending to the animals, watering the garden, and repairing a section of the old barn, the couple finally settled down on the porch of their modest farmhouse. Linda poured 2 cups of warm tea, the steam rising delicately in the cool evening air, and handed one to Quang. He accepted it with a quiet smile, the kind of smile that spoke of both exhaustion and contentment. They sat side by side on the wooden steps, their shoulders touching, a comfortable silence stretching between them. It was the kind of silence that didn't need to be filled with words, because their hearts seemed to beat in the same rhythm. From where they sat, they could see the vast fields stretching endlessly, the soil dark and rich, ready to nurture life. For Quang, it was not just land. It was a promise of the future he wanted to build with Linda. For Linda, the farm represented both stability and the tender dreams she still carried, fragile yet unyielding. The quietness of the farm the evening had a way of stirring their innermost thoughts. Quang's gaze lingered on the horizon, yet in his heart he was not seeing the fields or the mountains. He was seeing a different picture, one where the farmhouse was filled with light and laughter, where little footsteps echoed across the wooden floor, and the scent of baby powder mingled with that of fresh bread from the kitchen. He imagined children running barefoot through the fields, chasing after each other under the warm sun, their laughter blending with the rustling of the leaves. Linda leaned her head gently on Quang's shoulder, letting out a soft sigh. The weight of the day seemed to melt away in that moment, replaced by a quiet hope. She too was lost in her own vision of the future, a vision where her arms were no longer empty, where the sound of a baby's cry was not just an image from the internet, but a reality in their home. The memory of their loss still lingered, raw and painful, but it also fueled her yearning to embrace new life again. She wrapped her hands around the warm cup, drawing comfort not just from the tea, but from Quang's presence beside her. As the crickets began their nightly song and the last rays of sunlight slipped away, their conversation turned soft and intimate. They spoke of dreams, of the house they wanted to expand one day, of the nursery Linda imagined painting in gentle colors, and of the names they had once whispered late at night. Names that belonged to children not yet born, but already deeply loved. Each word carried a promise, not only of the future they longed for, but of the strength they shared to face it together. The evening deepened, and though fatigue from the long day pressed upon their bodies, their spirits felt lighter, lifted by the simple act of dreaming together. In that golden hour, with the farm quiet around them and the stars just beginning to emerge, Quang and Linda found themselves closer than ever, not just as husband and wife, but as 2 souls who had weathered sorrow and still dared to hope. For in the heart of the countryside, After all the work and the struggles, their love remained the seed from which every dream would grow. After the long days of toil on the farm, when the animals were fed and the last rows of vegetables watered, a new rhythm always seemed to unfold in Quang and Linda's lives, one of quiet intimacy and tender dreaming. In those gentle hours between work and sleep, they would often retreat to the comfort of their porch, the glow of a lantern casting soft light on their faces. With the world around them hushed, they reached for their phones, not to check the news or their busy schedules, but to search for images of babies, tiny faces with chubby cheeks, innocent eyes, and smiles that seemed to hold the promise of an entire universe. What began as a simple distraction soon became a ritual, a way of soothing the emptiness left behind by their loss. The more they looked, the more real their vision of the future became. Sometimes Linda would laugh softly, nudging Quang with her elbow when she found a photograph of a baby with a mischievous grin. "This one looks like you," she would tease, her eyes sparkling in the dim light. Other times, Quang would show her a picture of a baby peacefully sleeping, wrapped snugly in a blanket, and whisper, "Imagine if that were ours." These small exchanges, tender and almost playful, carried a deeper longing beneath their surface, a yearning for the day when they would no longer be looking at strangers' children on a screen, but at their own, sleeping soundly in the next room. Linda often allowed herself to drift into daydreams during these moments. She imagined decorating a nursery in soft pastel colors, painting tiny stars on the ceiling so their child would always fall asleep under a sky full of light. She pictured herself rocking a baby in her arms on this very porch, singing lullabies as the sun dipped below the horizon. The warmth of those dreams filled her heart with a fragile but steady hope, a balm for the scars left behind by grief. Quang, too, carried his own visions. He imagined teaching their child how to plant seeds in the rich soil, showing them how life takes root and grows strong with patience and care. He saw a future where their evenings were no longer quiet, but filled with laughter and little voices calling out for them. The ritual of scrolling through photos became more than a pastime. It became a form of healing, a way of reminding themselves that their story was not yet finished. Though they had known heartache, their bond had grown stronger, and together they were learning to transform loss into hope. Each smile they saw, each innocent face, stirred within them a renewed determination to keep moving forward. The ache of what they had lost would never fully vanish, but it no longer defined them. Instead, it became the soil from which new dreams could sprout. On nights when Linda's eyes grew heavy with tears, Quang would wrap an arm around her shoulders and pull her close, pressing a kiss to her hair. "We'll have our chance," he would whisper, his voice firm with quiet conviction. And though her heart still trembled with doubt, Linda chose to believe him. She chose to believe in the strength of their love, in the way it had carried them through sorrow and could carry them toward joy. As the crickets sang outside and the stars filled the dark sky with their distant light, Quang and Linda continued to dream. Every photograph they gazed at, every whispered promise shared between them, stitched another thread of hope into the tapestry of their lives. They were no longer just a couple working a farm. They were builders of a future, one vision at a time, holding tightly to the belief that one day their home would no longer echo with silence, but with the sweet, uncontainable laughter of a child they had longed for all along. No longer just a couple working a farm, they were builders of a future, bound by both love and longing. Yet beneath those tender dreams lay the haunting shadow of the past. The miscarriage had left a scar on both of their hearts, a wound so deep that time alone could not erase it. Linda sometimes found herself tracing the outline of that grief in quiet moments, remembering the sterile hospital walls, the cold echo of words she had wished she never heard. The loss had been shattering, a silence where there should have been a cry. But as painful as it was, it also became the fire that fueled their determination, shaping their vision of tomorrow into something even stronger, more precious. Quang carried that determination in every glance he gave her. He had always pictured himself as a father, steady and reliable, someone who would guide their children with patience and strength. Watching Linda cradle her pain after the miscarriage had been almost unbearable for him. He could take on the hardest labor on the farm, endure blisters on his hands and long days in the sun, but he could not take away her sorrow. And so, his deepest desire became not just to have a child, but to see her radiant again, her arms full of life, her smile bright with the joy she deserved. In his eyes, their future child was more than a blessing. It was a promise of healing, a bridge between the past and the hope that lay ahead. Everyday tasks carried this silent yearning. When Quang repaired the old crib stored in the barn, he imagined the weight of a baby resting there. When Linda sewed curtains for the spare room, she quietly chose soft, playful colors, as though preparing for a nursery that had not yet come to be. Even the land itself seemed to echo their longing, the soil fertile and waiting, the air filled with the whisper of renewal. It was as if the farm, with its endless cycles of planting and harvest, mirrored their own journey, loss and waiting, hope, and the promise of new life. One evening, under a sky dusted with stars, Quang turned to Linda and spoke words that sounded almost like a vow. "This house," he said softly, his hand closing around hers, "will not always be this quiet. One day, it'll be filled with laughter again. I know it. I'll wait as long as it takes, but our time will come." Linda's eyes glistened as she listened, her heart aching with both sorrow and belief. For the first time in a long while, she let herself imagine that he was right, that one day their empty rooms would overflow with joy, and their silence would give way to the music of tiny voices. The night grew colder, yet the warmth between them was enough. Their grief was still a part of them, but it no longer defined them. Instead, what defined them now was the courage to dream, the courage to love despite loss, and the courage to keep hoping, even when hope felt fragile. Together, they carried that hope like a lantern in the darkness, a light that guided them through uncertainty and kept their hearts steady. And as the farm settled into its midnight hush, Quang and Linda leaned into each other, not broken, but unshaken, ready to wait, ready to love, ready to believe that one day their farmhouse would no longer echo with silence, but with the boundless laughter of the children they had always longed for.
Xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tử Ninda Review. Vậy là tập phim của chúng ta ngày hôm nay đã kết thúc tại đây. Trong tập phim ngày hôm nay thì sau những giờ làm việc vất vả tại trang trại thì Quang và Linda đã có những giây phút hạnh phúc khi mơ về ngôi nhà và những đứa trẻ và lần mang thai tiếp theo của Linda. Quang rất mong muốn Linda có thể mang thai trở lại sau sự cố bị sảy thai lần trước. Điều đó là điều mà Quang và Linda luôn khát khao và mong mỏi. Linda và Quang liệu muốn giảng đơn đó của hai người có thành sự thật hay không? Tất cả sẽ được hé lộ ở tập tiếp theo sẽ được phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh Lý Tử Linda Review. Các bạn hãy bấm vào nút like, để lại bình luận và nhớ chia sẻ video giúp kênh của chúng mình. Điều đó sẽ là động lực rất lớn để mình viết ra những câu chuyện tiếp theo hay hơn nữa. Cảm ơn các bạn vì đã luôn đồng hành cùng kênh. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn ở các tập tiếp theo. Bye bye.